My sister secretly spent the night with my fiancé on the night of our engagement, but my family took her side. 5 years later, she was begging for 200,000 Brazilian reals. Recently, I received a call from my mother, whom I hadn't spoken to in nearly 5 years, saying she needed my help because my sister and her husband, the man who should have been my husband, had gone through a tragedy. My sister, Melissa, got with my fiancé, Lucas, on the day of our engagement. Lucas and I had been together since college, and after almost 5 years together, he proposed to me. He threw a party to surprise me on the night of our engagement, and I still remember feeling on top of the world until around 10 p.m. when I decided to step out to the garden for better cell reception and found my sister kissing Lucas. They were kissing so passionately that, for the first few seconds, they didn't even notice I was standing there, mouth agape. I couldn't believe he was doing this to me after nearly 5 years together, and on the night of our engagement. When they finally noticed me, they separated instantly, but it was too late. I ran to my car and drove as fast as I could to the nearest hotel. I was hyperventilating because I was in shock from what I had just seen. Somehow, I tried to process it and wished it wasn't true, but then I received a message from Melissa saying she was sorry, but she was in love with Lucas. Apparently, this had been going on for a long time. I was in the hotel room when I got the message, and I collapsed like never before. Lucas sent me a message almost with the same content, saying that he only proposed to me because he thought that if he committed to me, he could get Melissa out of his head. Obviously, that didn't work and made him like Melissa even more. He told me it wasn't about me, it was about them, and that they knew they were meant to be together. I was just an obstacle in the way of Lucas finally being with Melissa. I stayed in the hotel for a few days and tried to pull myself together because I still felt bad and was forcing myself to believe that this was just a cruel prank life was playing on me. After almost 4 days, I finally went home because I needed to get my things and return to work if I didn't want to be fired. When I got home, I realized my family was living with Lucas, waiting for me to return. It would almost be touching if it weren't for the circumstances under which I left. Everyone tried to send me messages and make me respond after I disappeared, but I didn't respond to any. So, needless to say, there was a lot of chaos when I finally came back, and everyone rushed to hug me and say how happy they were to see me. Even Melissa had the audacity to approach me and give me a big hug with tears in her eyes when she saw me. I was so disoriented that I couldn't react and just stood there, like a silent statue, as everyone surrounded me. Finally, when everyone calmed down, I made it clear that I was back only to get my things and leave forever. Lucas was standing there, not saying a word until that moment, but when I said I was leaving, he announced that I didn't need to leave because he had already packed his things and would move out with Melissa since now everything was clear. My family, my parents, and my aunt, my father's younger sister, who has been living in the same house since her husband passed away, were actually smiling widely, even though there was nothing to smile about, at least not from my point of view. Melissa was next to Lucas in a clumsy side hug and was looking at me with a lot of sadness but still smiling. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to ask my family why the hell they were smiling because, to me, Melissa had just broken up my engagement and stolen my fiancé of almost 5 years. There was nothing funny or sweet about it. My mother decided to speak at that moment and told me they couldn't go back in time and change the past, but they could accept the future, and they knew that the future had Melissa and Lucas together. It was a relationship born out of betrayal, and they were sorry, but they also wanted me to understand and accept that this was the best. Melissa said she was sorry for taking my fiancé, but she couldn't help falling in love with him. She wished she had told me earlier and not had to find out this way, but apparently they were madly in love and wanted to spend their lives together. Then, the two of them kissed right in front of me, and my mother even had the audacity to wipe away a tear. I exploded and told them that this shouldn't be sentimental or emotional, and what they were doing was disgusting. To my surprise, my family seemed uncomfortable with my behavior and told me that I was being spoiled with the situation instead of being happy for my sister. I was making everything revolve around me and didn't approve of my behavior. I was shocked by their actions and told everyone to leave my house at that moment. I really had nothing more to say to them because it was becoming very clear that they cared more about Melissa and her happiness than about me or what was right and wrong. They were so busy trying to justify what Melissa had done that they completely forgot that I was also a human being with feelings. After all the chaos and betrayal, I was devastated. The thought that my family had turned against me and how my sister and my ex-fiancé were now asking for an absurd amount only made the pain even more intense. What they had done was unforgivable to me. It felt like the world had crumbled in an instant. I spent weeks trying to understand what had happened, but nothing seemed to make sense. The betrayal and abandonment I had suffered were too hard to process, and the fact that my own family not only accepted it but also seemed to support them was the final blow. It was at that moment that I realized I needed to make a radical decision for my own sanity. I decided that, to regain my balance and inner peace, I needed to focus completely on my professional life. The marriage, which had once been a dream of mine, now seemed like a distant and painful illusion. The idea of being with someone who could cause me so much pain and betrayal was out of the question. I focused on my work with renewed determination. My job became a source of strength and purpose, and I dedicated myself to growing professionally. Success in my career became my priority, and I found a new sense of fulfillment and identity in my professional life. Time passed, and the pain of the betrayal, though still present, began to dissipate. Over the years, I learned to appreciate my own company and find joy in the small things that had once been overshadowed by the hurt. The thought of having a serious relationship or getting married was no longer a priority. Instead, I was more focused on being the best version of myself and achieving my personal and professional goals. My heart slowly healed, and looking back, I realized that choosing to distance myself from romantic relationships had been the best decision for me. Life is full of challenges and unexpected changes, but finding strength within myself and focusing on what truly matters made all the difference. Now, I am at peace with my decision and confident in the path I've chosen for my life. After years of dedication to my work and building a financially stable and fulfilling life, I became a reference in my field. My effort and focus on my career had paid off, and I was finally living the life I had always dreamed of, full of accomplishments and stability. I had found a new sense of happiness and purpose, far from romantic relationships and the pain of the past. However, one day, I received a series of calls from my family, something that hadn't happened in a long time. At first, I thought it might be a mistake or an attempt at genuine reconciliation, but I soon realized that the situation was more serious than I had imagined. My mother, with whom I had never had a very close relationship, was calling to say that my sister Melissa and my ex-fiancé Lucas had suffered a severe accident. According to her, they were in the hospital and urgently needed an expensive surgery and medications totaling 200,000 Brazilian reals. The situation seemed desperate, and the medical costs were astronomical. Although the pain of the betrayal was still present, the sisterly love and compassion I still felt for my sister led me to reconsider my decision. I thought about the suffering my sister might be going through, and despite everything that had happened, I decided to help. With my heart full of conflicting emotions, I transferred the requested amount to cover the surgery and medication costs. However, the truth came to light shortly afterward, leaving me completely devastated. I found out that the money I had sent was not being used for emergency surgery or genuine medical treatments, but for something entirely different. My sister and Lucas used the money to fund a plastic surgery for Melissa, who wanted to enlarge her breasts, and also to buy a new car for them. All of this while they were in good health, with no real need for expensive medical treatment. The betrayal I had already felt earlier became even more acute. I felt completely deceived and used, and the indignation I experienced was indescribable. My compassion and desire to help had been exploited in a vile way, and the disappointment I felt was overwhelming. I contacted my mother and the other family members to confront them about the situation. The response I received was an attempt to justify Melissa and Lucas's actions, minimizing the impact of the deception and suggesting that it was a way to pay for their happiness. The lack of remorse and the defense of their actions only increased my anger and frustration. This episode reaffirmed my decision to distance myself from toxic family relationships and focus on my own life. The betrayal and deception I faced once again reminded me of the importance of protecting myself and prioritizing my emotional well-being. From that moment on, I committed to maintaining a healthy distance from my family and to continue building my life based on principles of honesty and self-respect. Although disappointment still weighed on my heart, time and distance helped me heal even more. I learned to trust my instincts and to be more cautious with my relationships and decisions. My professional life continued to be my greatest source of satisfaction, and I remained focused on achieving my goals and living a full and meaningful life. As time passed, the betrayal of Melissa and Lucas turned into a painful but valuable lesson. I learned to protect my heart, to value my own effort, and to never compromise my principles for loyalty to those who don't value them. Now, I look to the future with determination and greater clarity about what really matters in my life. Months passed since I discovered the truth about the use of the money I sent to Melissa and Lucas. Time and distance had helped me process the betrayal and concentrate my energy on my professional life and well-being. I had moved on, keeping myself away from any contact with my family. The pain and disappointment had transformed into a firm decision to preserve my peace of mind, far from those who had caused me so much suffering. Then, one day, I received an unexpected call. When I answered, I was surprised to hear Melissa's voice on the other end of the line. She was in a state of desperation and distress and explained that the new car she had bought with the money I had sent had been stolen. To make matters worse, they didn't have insurance for the vehicle. Melissa and Lucas were in trouble and urgently needed a car for their daily needs. At first, I stayed silent, trying to understand the gravity of the situation and the audacity of Melissa calling me again after everything that had happened. She continued to plead for help, asking me to either help them buy a new car or provide some financial support. Without letting myself be swayed by emotion, I responded with a cold calm. "Melissa, you'll have to deal with what you have. I'm not going to help this time. If you really need a car, maybe you should think about selling the silicone you bought and use that money to fix the problem. What you did was completely wrong, and I have nothing more to offer." Melissa became furious, calling me selfish and jealous, accusing me of not wanting to help my own family in a time of need. But before she could continue with her accusations and justifications, I interrupted firmly. "Karma exists, and you both deserve all the misery you're getting. Hang up the call and never contact me again." With that, I hung up the phone. For the first time in months, I felt a true sense of relief. The feeling of finally closing a painful chapter and setting clear boundaries was liberating. I had done my part to help when it was needed, but self-respect and integrity demanded that I no longer allow myself to be exploited. From that day on, I never had any contact with my family again. The decision to completely cut the ties was painful but also necessary. I focused on my life and the future, continuing to pursue my goals and building a full and meaningful existence, far from the shadows of the past. Time passed, and while the scar of the betrayal would never completely disappear, I learned to accept that life is full of lessons, and the choice to move forward with dignity and strength was the best path to my happiness and inner peace. The decision to distance myself permanently was a crucial step in my healing and personal growth, and I do not regret following that path. Despite all the suffering and losses I faced, over time, life offered me new and happy opportunities. The wound caused by Melissa and Lucas's betrayal and the ensuing chaos eventually healed, giving way to a new phase in my life. As the years went by, I regained not only my financial stability but also my inner peace. The lost money was recovered through hard work and dedication, and more importantly, I managed to rebuild myself in ways I never thought possible. Through pain and challenge, I found strengths I didn't know I had. Today, my life is very different. I am married to a wonderful man who truly loves and respects me. Our relationship is based on trust, support, and mutual understanding, something I had never experienced before. He is the complete opposite of what I knew, and his presence in my life brought a new and refreshing perspective on happiness and fulfillment. Interestingly, my family never knew about my new marriage. While I was happy to keep my private life away from their intrusions, I couldn't help but feel a certain satisfaction knowing that my happiness no longer depended on their approval or involvement. Instead, I found my own way and built a full life based on my own choices. I hope things remain this way. The tranquility I have found now is precious to me, and I do not wish for anything from my past to disturb the balance I've achieved. Life is full of surprises, but I am confident I made the right choices. I am living the life I've always deserved. As I look back, I see the journey I've traveled and feel grateful for having found the strength to move forward. The pain and betrayal were replaced by true love and stability, and in the end, that's what truly matters. I live my life with a lighter heart and a peaceful mind, and I am grateful for every step I've taken toward the happiness I have today.